Hey guys, welcome back. So you may have saw in a previous video we mentioned we only made 2 passes and we decided to call that a day, do a bunch of inspections before we continued racing. Yeah, good thing we did that. Let me show you what we just found. So I decided to do a nut and bolt check, which I'm mostly complete with and I think it looks fine. So then I went on to doing a visual inspection of like hoses and wires and stuff like that. And one thing I noticed at the track when I was opening and shutting the hood, it seemed like it was catching. And I found the problem. So if you look right here, there's a shiny spot on the turbo. Now that's never hit before, but it was hitting at the track. But I saw this when I was there and I was like, oh, that's what's catching. Wrong. Check that out. That's what was catching. This hose is like cut. Now luckily this is some heavy duty shit. And so even though it cut, it didn't get all the way through. Let me zoom in and fire up some light. Yeah, so you can actually see the braiding in there. I don't remember the exact spec, but I think this is rated for like 300. Hell, I might be on there. It's pretty high rated stuff, I think, this hose. I want to say it's like 300 PSI rated. So apparently it took a little damage. It never leaked. But this is exactly why I didn't make 5 or 10 or 20 passes the first time I went to the track because of crap like this. So this happened after 2 passes. What if I'd made 3, 4, 10, 15? Maybe that would have chewed all the way through. Now, had that chewed through, you'd have oil spraying. Sorry. Had that chewed through, you would have oil spraying all over the hot side of the turbo. Now, admittedly, I don't have a turbo blanket, so it'd probably smoke a lot and probably not catch on fire. A lot of times oil, when it hits hot stuff, it just kind of boils off and smokes, but it doesn't really catch a fire. Now, if you have this wrapped with something, well, then you're in trouble. But either way, that's really bad, because that ain't coolant, that's oil. So that's a good catch. Now, we're not done. Just because I caught this and I decided to film it, we still got to go over all the other hoses. So I could come back and show you something else. I don't know. But this never showed up in testing. This didn't show up until I got to the track. So I've opened and shut this hood many times, and that's the first time this really happened. So anyway, thought I'd show you that. That's exactly why we didn't make a lot of passes, was because you never know. So we're going to continue our journey. So once we get complete with the visual, we're going to pull these spark plugs and see how they look, because I was worried. When I pulled the data log, our air temps were like 240 degrees, something like that. And I don't know if that number is real, because this sensor only goes to like 250 maybe, or something like that, because it's a GM air temp sensor. So basically it probably just means it was higher than it could measure, which that's not surprising. But the point is, with no intercooler and not running meth, it could have detonated. Plus these plugs are 1 heat range hotter than they should be for E85. Granted, I wasn't running high boost, so it's probably fine, but we're going to pull the plugs and check instead of making an assumption. So anyway, we're going to keep going. I'll bring you guys back after we complete our visual inspection and get to the spark plugs. Alright, so we've been going through. Here's what we found so far. So we talked about that oil hose hitting the hood, and it also hits the turbine, so we got that noted. We actually saw the oil filter, so we just did oil change right before we went to the track. I tightened the filter pretty tight, but it was leaking a little bit, so I don't know. Maybe I need to tighten it more, but it was about as tight as I could get it, hand tight. I do have a wrench, but I'm surprised that leaked. But it did, because I cleaned the area after putting it on so I could tell if it ever leaked, and it did. Also, I got to pick the car up on a lift, but I just got to inspect this. It kind of looks weird. I'm not sure if there's anything wrong, but we're going to check that. Also, I made a list for stuff to improve, so these are things that didn't fail, but I don't like it. So the throttle cable, the oil feed to the turbo hose, and the water hose for the turbo. So let me just show you. So here's our downpipe, and here's our throttle cable, and that's like 2 fingers away. Now, nothing happened, but yeah, same thing down there. Now, the bottom one has coolant going through it, so it'd probably be fine. And downpipe, anyway, whatever. We're going to heat shield that stuff. We should have already done that. In fact, I used to have some of this heat shielded a long time ago. So we need to fix those 2, and then same thing here. That's a big hot turbine. That's a hose. This has coolant in it. That has oil in it. Yeah, they're probably fine, but let's heat shield that stuff anyway. And probably this too, because that's like a thumb away from the turbine. Okay, so we made those notes. We also pulled the plugs. So let me show you. These look pretty good. This is one of the reasons I stopped racing, among just wanting to do inspections, but I was worried about this. Actually, it looks okay. So we're going to get zoomed in. Here's plug 4. See if I can get a decent look on the camera. Actually, let's zoom in some more. Try to get you guys a decent idea of what this did. I'll be right back with some more light. Okay, kind of hard to film, but this is plug 4. So the porcelain's clean. If you detonate, you'll often have these little aluminum balls that stick to the porcelain, because when you detonate, it's like, anyway, that happens. Very common. I looked at all 4 plugs. They all kind of look similar. Here's the strap. Let's see if we can get on that. So you can see it's got that weird color. It's starting to burn off the coating that's on there, but it hasn't really burned it all the way. Like you can see, it's going to the strap. Let's see. Turn it a little bit. Sorry, it's hard to film this because you need light and to zoom way in. Man, this is quite difficult to film. Anyway, the plugs are cold. You can see like the threads look fine. Hasn't burned any of that off. The strap's still looking good. So this plug wasn't all that hot. That's not surprising because this is like a heat range 8 copper plug. Some kind of copper plug that NGK recommended. And yeah, that's not surprising because we weren't running a lot of booster power. And we only made 1 full pass. So, all good. We're going to get, for those of you who wonder, get back to normal zoom. These are V-Power. It doesn't have a part number. I thought it did. Anyway, if I ever find it, I'll show you guys. But this is what, they actually have a racing division. So all I did, I've done this in the past, I just email them and say, hey, here's my setup. What should I run? And then they basically tell you like, oh yeah, you should do this or that. So I was telling them I used to run iridium plugs. Or actually, they told me to run those, so I did. But when I told them I was running methanol, they said to run these. I was like, all right. So that's why we're running them. Anyway, plugs look good. There's number 3. Number 2. Number 1. They all look good. Like we were saying. They all look about the same. So, plugs are good. We're going to pop those back in. And I believe the next step is to lift the car and get underneath it and start doing inspections down there. We've already done what we can in the engine bay. So far that stuff I showed you on the list is all I found. Now we'll pick it up and continue our inspection. Alright, so we got the car up. So here's what we found. So the shift linkage was actually fine. Just from the top it looked weird, but it's actually okay. So the fuel pump inlet possibly has a slow leak, hard to say. That's not even a high pressure hose. That's it's just a gravity feed from the tank. So it could just be dirty. I wiped it off. We'll see. It doesn't smell like fuel, or I don't know what it is. But we wiped it off. If it is leaking, it's very small. So the trans dipstick was not fully seated. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So this is these transmissions were like designed in the 60s. So there it is. It's fully seated now, but it's just a big piece of rubber, and that thing pops into the case. This is what I'm talking about. Sorry. Right there. So if you go up there and pull on the dipstick, if you pull enough, it'll just fall out of the case. So we got to do something about that. We'll figure something out. I don't know. Zip ties, bolts, brackets. I don't know. But I don't like that because it did come up a little. It wasn't leaking. But I mean, if that's moving a little, like maybe eventually it'll move a lot. And if that ever comes out, that could be a problem. We did inspect, this isn't on the list. I looked up in here, all the converter bolts that I could see looked fine. I can only see 4 of them. So I may grab you can take a pry bar and tooth by tooth roll this. So I may do that and just check the last couple, make sure they look good. Because that shit's important. Downpipe touching transmission, I'll show you that. And then the trans mounts, both of these bolts came loose. That's a good thing we marked them because they both moved. I'll show you that. And the tail shaft seal, slight leak. Very slight, but it did leak. So here's our downpipe. If we scoot in here, see up there at the top, that's hitting. So basically it just rotated. There ain't a whole lot of clearance on this, but we'll rotate it back. Maybe the bolt's just not tight enough. If it's loose, hell, I might be able to do it here. Not really. But you can hear it hit. So anyway, we'll have to loosen our downpipe from the top and rotate it slightly. Don't know why that happened. Tail shaft right here. It's kind of hard to show on camera because this is shiny paint, but I wiped my hand here and it did come back with a little something. Not the end of the world, like a tiny bit of seepage there. It's not dripping, it's just barely wet. I don't know. Sometimes that points to like a ventilation problem. This trans shouldn't have that issue, but hey, we'll monitor. So we checked that. Well, let's see. Oh, transmission crossmember bolts. So check this one out. There's a perfect example of why you mark stuff. So there's our compound over there, and here, where it should be, there's a gap. That one definitely rotated, and this one I thought was good, but if I zoom in, take a look at this. It rotated too. Look. That's actually... See? Yeah, that one moved too. So both of those moved. That's fine. These aren't torqued all that tight. And I don't remember if I put Loctite. Actually, I probably didn't. I'm not sure. So if you look up here, they have rubber. So that like rubber isolates the trans to this cross member. And then on this side, we also have rubber. And then a fender washer, a regular washer, and a bolt. So basically, I just snug these. Now, the whole point of making them with rubber is to dampen vibration back here, but still have like a pretty rigid, like this can't really roll a lot, but it can dampen, which is important. So what we're going to do is we're just going to run these out, put probably just go straight to red Loctite, or at least blue, put them back, mark them again. Oh wow, I can move that with my finger, so that definitely was loose. Anyway, yeah, we'll just Loctite those, put them in, and monitor again. Since I know this happened, next time I'm at the track, I'll have to look. I think I have a, what's it called? It's like a camera. It's like a borescope kind of, but I could like tie it to a stick and actually reach in here and inspect under the car since I know where to look. So I may do something like that. It's a little extra effort just to make sure. But anyway, that's what we found on our inspection. So kind of funny. We only made like 2 passes and we found all these problems. So I'm glad I didn't make a bunch of passes. Damn, that's a hell of a list for only making 2 passes. And then I got the stuff to improve down here. Don't remember if I already talked about that, but basically heat shielding stuff around the turbo. So anyway, that's what we found. We're about to knock off. Kind of tired for today. Yesterday was a long day. So that's going to wrap this one up. But yeah, that's what we found. Moving forward, we'll be fixing all this stuff, getting it ready for the track again. And then I've also got, I'll show you later, but I've got a list of like immediate stuff, like things that just absolutely need to get done immediately. And then I've got short-term stuff that I want to do very, very soon. So we'll go over that in the next one. But anyway, hope you guys have enjoyed this, and until next time, y'all take it easy.